Hey, 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 good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Book Bar Sip and Chat. We have a familiar face here with us. You know, I get super excited when my loves come back to visit us. And tonight we have back N.D Jones. Hey, my love.
Hey, Manina. Happy Friday to everyone. Thank you.
Ooh, yes, cheers to the weekend. Man, I
No
could
snow.
no snow. It was beautiful weather just about all week. I mean, I couldn't wait for the weekend to get here. It was
Mhm.
great. How you been since the last time I saw you?
Same, busy, just like you.
Yes,
A
yes,
lot going on at work, and but my,
absolutely.
my daughter came home Wednesday on spring break, so that's always nice. She brings different energy back into the house.
Yes, yes, yes. Being empty nesters, I can
Mhm.
imagine. I just found out that my husband and I, our oldest, is graduating college. Like, count down from
Congratulations.
graduation. I know we're so proud of her. She is amazing. And
Yay.
pretty soon we'll have an NYU graduate in the house.
Wow, that's so impressive.
Yeah, I'm just here for bragging rights, but I'm so proud of her.
Those are important bragging rights. That's a great milestone for everyone.
Yeah.
So, are they having the graduation? Hopefully,
Hopefully, yeah. So far, we found
fingers
out it's going to
crossed.
be at unless something crazy, but I was told it's going to be at Yankee Stadium. So,
Whoa! I didn't
woo!
know they did that.
I know. I feel like for this kind of venue, I feel like it's going to might be multiple because I don't think last year they were able to graduate.
Ah,
So it might be an opportunity for those graduates to come back and walk. I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but
okay. No, I
waiting,
mean, that
waiting to
sounds
hear.
good. I wish more schools would do that. I
Hmm.
know my daughter's school, she said that they were going to have a prom because they have freshmen and sophomores who miss their
Oh.
prom. In the case of, I think the freshmen, they may have missed it junior year
Junior
and senior
and
year.
senior prom. Wow.
So it's not the same, but I think the thought is in the right place.
Yes, yes, I am. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'm glad that they were even considering
Mhm.
doing that. So that is awesomely awesome. So I brought you back
You
here
did.
with me. So we have a lot to talk about. So let's
Okay.
see where we're gonna delve in. So everyone, if you've been following us on social media, we have a new coloring book coming out. I'm so
Yes.
excited.
I brought it here just to show it off,
Yes,
my author
yes,
copy.
yes.
So
I'm excited. So that's
awesome.
the latest edition of her coloring books that are coming. And I have the
You
other
do.
set
You
here.
do. Look at that.
I have the other two here. So cannot wait to get to coloring, and I got my artwork. I'm so excited. I'm totally like trying not to take them to work, but I'm about to give them all this ethnicness and put them all up in my queue because like why not?
Hey, you got whatever energy you need.
I need it. I need the ancestors to give me some accolades so I don't do it myself.
We don't want any of that.
We don't want that at all. But the big reason I brought you back was because we are talking about the color of my resilience. This
Yes,
is my special copy
it
here.
is.
And she brought this to me, and this is my gift. And I am such an old school person where we were always taught you cannot write in books. Like that was like the cardinal sin to write in books. But this is a journal and it has
Mhm.
places for you to like write and jot down stuff. And
Right.
I'm trying to hold this copy as like my special copy and not write it.
You have to write in it. I want you to use it.
No, I think I'm gonna get a second copy that I can write in that one and then just leave this one for me. Because
Yes.
it's so pretty. And it has places to write and places to color. And and it is like, can people see like how thick is this
Yes.
journal? Like
Yeah. It's like over
this,
300 pages.
like the whole year. You can journal your life a whole year in this book. So be excited like me. Get your copy, and we're gonna talk about it today.
Yeah.
So people that follow Legacy Book Bar, of course, have seen numerous books penned by you, Crimson Hunter, Queen's Pride, Moth That Claws. So they've seen the sci-fi fantasy with a little romance,
Mhm.
with a little urban, with a whole bunch of knowledge and plots and twists. We've seen all of that. What made you go this direction?
I actually like telling this story, even though it's not, it's an honest
Mm-hmm.
story as far as how ideas come to authors.
Okay.
Now, so you talked about my typical brand, which is, as you said, paranormal romance, urban fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But what probably a lot of people who don't know me, who just know me as N.D Jones in that other arena, is that
Mm-hmm.
I have over 20 years as an educator experience. So
Mm.
I started as a high school teacher right here in Baltimore. As a matter of fact, the high school where I taught is actually the high school I graduated from.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was weird because when I interviewed there and I actually was hired, there were people there, teachers there who were teachers when I was a student. As a matter of fact, my social studies department chair, he was my psych social teacher when I was a senior.
Oh
And right,
wow.
so years later, I went back and he was still there. And I'll tell you this little funny story. So when I was it segues to this. It's relevant.
Okay. We're here for we have all the time. This is
Okay,
your hour. We're good.
so,
We love
so
stories here.
okay, so this is my story. So since I was a kid, I always said I was going to be a civil rights lawyer. So into social justice, and I think for obvious reasons, but I was committed to that all through high school, all through college. So when I was in high school, we took like a personality test, and it looked at just not only our personality, but based on the results, the type of careers our personalities were best suited for.
Mm.
So w- I don't know if it was my top one, was either one or two, was a teacher. Now, lawyer was in there. It probably was in my top five, but I'm thinking, it's going to be like my number one, my number two,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't. So, like I said, my number one, I'm almost certain it was a teacher. And I was like, I'm not going to be a stinking teacher. And it wasn't and it wasn't because it's not an admirable profession. It's because I looked around and I knew how those kids were. I'm like, they're rude, they're disrespectful, they don't really honor the people in this position. I
Mm.
don't want to put myself in that position. And so that was me, 18. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to become a lawyer. So I went to school. I majored in law and society. So that was like sociology. That was American government. And at the end, I applied to law schools, and I was Temple NYU, so I was accepted into New York Law School.
Mm.
And my parents were like, "Oh my God, it was great." I was like, "Yep," and it didn't feel right.
Mm.
It was the weirdest thing. It didn't feel right. I felt that I could do a very good job, but I felt also that it would give me an unhealthy amount of stress. And
Okay.
so I was like, I can't do that. And so I just graduated and I was accepted. And my parents were like, okay, so yeah. So what you gonna do with that degree? What you gonna do with that degree that you had that we just sent you 4 years to school? So I was like, I don't know. I'll go back to school. So I went back to school for 2 more years. Came out with a master's in political science, and it was still, what are you going to do? You have another degree, but you still don't know what you're going to do. So I was like, I guess I'll teach. So
Mm.
and so I did, and I actually I love teaching. I enjoy it so much. It's rewarding, and it's probably just as stressful as other stuff that I thought as far as law, but I was
Mm-hmm.
able to teach Baltimore City kids, really teach a lot of Black students. I taught American government, US history, and African American history, which I
Mm-hmm.
love teaching that as well. And it was very stressful. And all the things I thought about students when I was a kid, yeah, hmm that stuff is true. Being a teacher
Okay.
is a lot of hard work. But it's also very rewarding. So I have a long career of being in education. And then I went on and I transferred eventually from Baltimore City School to another local Maryland school system in which I engage in professional development
Okay.
of just adults. So teachers, administrators, secretaries, bus drivers, we do
Mm.
basically the gamut in our position. So I say all of that to kind of give the background on why, if you understand me as an N.D Jones brand, it may seem unusual. But
Okay.
if you know me as a person, you know that it fits very well into my base of knowledge, into my skill set, and my wheelhouse. So it's not really that unusual. So when the pandemic broke out, what was that in 2020?
Well, March
Oh, now
March
in
2020,
March 2020.
2 years in.
So I mean, we know it happened before then, but when it
Right.
really when it blew up and it
Okay.
was impacting so many people in the country, and schools was trying to figure out what we were going to do, the school system where I work, just like Maryland school systems across the board, they decided to pull back and to close the school system as far as face-to-face in-person teaching, because that was just too dangerous for all involved.
For sure.
But my job remained the same. So we had to transfer everything that we did face to face to online. And so what my executive director, she said, well, what do you think people really need right now? So I had to turn all that into online courses. So I created a lot of courses around resilience, around self-care, meaning building those things in yourself, around
Mm.
cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence. And the school system where I work is predominantly white students,
Mm.
faculty, staff, administrators. So, of course, those were the same individuals who signed up for the courses. And all those courses are very personal. Just like in the book, I'm asking them to reflect, to write essays, to
Mm.
watch certain videos, to read certain articles, to self assess. And so I'm reading about educated, middle class white people who were struggling,
Mm.
who were struggling with coping skills. A lot of them, or I shouldn't say a lot, many of them did not have adequate coping skills. And this was before the pandemic. Many of
Mm.
them had a lot of um, concerns about how they thought about emotions as young people, managing conflicts, managing their anger. And so reading all of these, I mean, dozens and dozens from these educators. And then I'm at my desk and I look up on the news and we have Trump on the news. We have the George Floyd trial coming on. We
Mm.
have all over the world, people are protesting police brutality, violence against people who don't fall into certain categories, Black men, Black women, poor individuals. It's all over. And so I'm looking at all of this stuff and it's like, wow, it's so much going on. So many people are
Mm.
angry, so many people are hurt. And what are we really doing about it? And so, what it really brought to light in a way that I knew, but so many things coalesced, is I'm looking at all these white people who have a lot going on
Mm-hmm.
and they have their issues and they are legitimate. But what they don't have is that extra layer that comes with being a person of color in a racist society. And so again, it just reminds me of all of our struggles and what are we actually doing to manage that in a healthy, safe way. And I think in a lot of times we don't manage it in a healthy, safe way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, what can I offer? What can I do about that? What do I have in myself that could help people who are in a position and they want to reach out, but they don't know how to do so? And I'm like, well, I know a lot about self care. I know a lot about resilience. I know a lot about how the brain works. I know how people learn, adult learners.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can take a PD that I would typically do online or face to face, and I could transfer that into a book. Now, that was a long story to get um, to answer your question, but it really does go back to how
Understood.
I came into the profession of education, because it's still very much connected to that little girl who wanted to be a lawyer because she believed in social justice. So I
Mm,
never lost that. I just maneuvered it in a different way. So it looked differently than I thought it would, but that
mm-hmm.
passion for social justice and equality is still there. And so it bears itself out in every work that I publish, whether it's fiction or nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. So everyone knows that you can get this book right now on Amazon. We're going to talk some more about this. Today we have her here for about an hour, but just know we will post the link at the end of the broadcast, so you'll be able to go right on Amazon and you can actually get this today. So make sure you do that, okay? So I know you and I have talked about this book, and I did your podcast and we talked
Mhm.
about different things about resilience and what it meant to us as Black women, and in different versions of self-care. And I know we joked, and everyone looks at self-care differently. And when I was on your show, I said for me self-care was if I could get a couple of hours, get my nails done,
Right.
buy some new hair, you know, and
Mhm.
just sit back with a book, be it, paperback, hardback, or my tablet, and just have that moment to, whew,
Right.
that was for me. Not everyone, is a reader. Not everyone, gets their hair and nails done. What's some things that you do for self care?
Yeah, there are things that I do consciously, and there are a lot of areas of growth. Definitely areas of growth when it comes to the physical aspect. But I love I love all this streaming. All the
Hmm.
Netflix, the HBO, and all of that stuff. I definitely enjoy reading. I love reading fan fiction. I love watching movies. I love anime. Um,
Really?
I do, and it's something that's great because, well, I just love cartoons, anime, but it's something else that I can have in common with my young adult children. So I can tell you, like, so right now, you talk about being empty nesters. So my husband and I, we even when the kids were little, we date. We make sure that we fit time in to go out. When they was little in daycare, they used to have a daycare. I think once a month they would have like an evening, and so
Hmm.
they would open the center up to parents, and we took advantage of that. We had to really try to be mindful of the fact that we were a couple before we were parents,
Hmm.
and if you think back to where we are right now, if we didn't do all those things when both the kids left, it's like, hello. It's like I haven't seen you in 18 years. What are we gonna talk about?
Right.
So we were very mindful of that. So even when they, and we do a lot with our kids. So as they got older, we still did those things. And so
Mm.
now that they're out, it's different.
Mhm.
It is different. That relationship is different. And so one thing that I do for my self-care, which I enjoy, and I'm happy that my husband enjoys it as well. We enjoy spending time together. Every evening, or most evenings, we'll find something to watch, even if it's just
Mm.
30 minutes. Netflix, like I said, HBO Max,
Mhm.
Amazon Prime. I'm giving all these plugs. I'm not getting paid for any of this at all.
It's okay.
you know, Disney Plus, all those things, and
Mhm.
it's a nice time for us just to be in the same space together
Mhm.
and watching something that we enjoy. And sometimes they're just duds, and we know they're going to be duds going in, but it's just spending time with
Mhm.
each other. That is part of my self-care. I look forward to that. That's something really nice that after work, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some work. And then in the evening, we're going to figure out what it is. And I can
Mhm.
tell you, sometimes the next day we were like, what did we watch? Just not remember. But it's not always about what we watch, but the reason why we get together. So I
Mhm.
value that. My husband has always been a physical person, martial arts, all of that. And
Hmm.
I'm not. I'm really pretty much sedentary. And so he's always encouraged me to do more.
Hmm.
So eventually he signed me up maybe 2 or 3 months ago, maybe a little bit more. So we take a kickboxing class together. And, I'm not like the best at it, but I'm committed, to doing. And so tomorrow I'll get up and go attend a 9 o'clock class. So I do that, but when it comes to physical self-care, there's definitely more I need to do. I need to be more mindful of when I'm at work, getting up, taking those breaks. I drink
Hmm.
water. I can definitely drink a lot more water. Um, I don't stay up really late at night, but I probably could push back my time at least by an hour so I could get a little bit more rest.
Hmm.
That stuff is important. Pulling away from the computer, all these screens, I've definitely
Hmm.
had instances in which my eyes, my head, everything is hurt so much because I've been on a computer so
Way
many
too long.
hours of the day.
Hmm.
A lot of my work with the public school system, you're researching, you're doing things online, you have these classes that are online. So much is online. We can't do PD face to face anymore.
Right.
So trying to pull back from things like that
Hmm.
is really important. Um, Reaching out to our son, having those human connections.
Hmm.
We talk to him. We like to do it on the screen so we can not just hear his face. Hear his voice. We can see his face because we
Hmm.
think you can hide a lot when you don't see that young person.
For sure.
So being able to speak with them and then my brother in New York. So having those type of human relationships, and my friends. So all that is, I think, really nice part of my self-care. And believe it or not, those self-care Saturday conversations, I didn't do it for me, but I've
Hmm.
got so much out of it. I feel so honored and rewarded after having each and every one of those conversations. Almost like feel guilty, when I hear 'em. But they are beautiful conversations and ones I
Hmm.
think we need to have, but they fill me up. And I never
Hmm.
thought that I didn't think about that. I had no idea that would be my emotional response to it because I'm so cognitive, but that has been. And so I look forward to those and I listen to them and I remember what you said. You're talking about your tub and candles and all of that.
Yes, it is nothing like a bubble bath with some candles, baby.
So yeah, all of that,
That for
all of that is
sure.
is enjoyable.
I hear it. When my husband calls it my setup, when I grab my towel and shower cap, I get a glass of wine and I start moving to the bathroom. He's like, she's gonna disappear for 2 hours. Let me go find something to do. I need a moment.
Need
Leave
it.
me, and it's just, and then I get out and it's like, whew. And I
Mhm.
feel so. First, I'm wrinkled like a prune, but that's neither
That's
near
all
there.
good.
But I feel so refreshed, and it's
Exactly.
like whatever happens tomorrow, I can face it because I took that 45 minutes, 2 hours, however long, and just washed it all away.
Mhm.
And that's simple, it's inexpensive, and it
Mhm.
is so needed.
Yes.
Um, I'm in a mom's group on Facebook, and that's been, the biggest thing that we've talked about, especially since the pandemic, is,
Mhm.
mental health and self care. And, some people are at different stages, some people process things
Mhm.
a little differently. Some of our our Black women have just been severely depressed
Yeah.
in this new age of living with COVID, and you know everyone has to deal with their depression. Be it medicine, be it therapy. But one of the common things we talked about in the group was stop letting people tell you or make you believe that therapy isn't for Black women. I
Mhm.
feel like in 2022 and going on, therapy is needed for everyone,
Yeah.
no matter the color, because you need an experienced professional that can look and listen to your story without any, I don't want to say judgment, but it's like they don't know you. They just know
Mhm.
about what you tell them. So they're not going to side with you. They're not going to side with the other person.
Mhm.
They're just going to get you, ask you questions to get you to think about where you are in life. Is that healthy for you?
Yeah.
And I tell anybody, therapy, there were times in my life, especially in my 20s, baby. The anger I lived with in my 20s, I totally needed a therapist.
Mhm.
But now, at almost, high five and 40 in a very few short months, I'll tell
Mhm.
anybody, go see a therapist. If
Mhm.
if you can't talk about it and it's been a month or two and you still feel the same way, go find you a therapist.
Yeah.
I always tell people, especially in this age, with where I am in life, um, I'm starting to transition into um, Black healthcare professionals
Mhm.
because I feel like they're going to understand what we as a person of color is going through,
Yeah.
and they're going to diagnose you, and they're not going to be oh well, this worked for everybody,
Mhm.
but your majority of your client base is of non-melanated variety.
Yeah. Cultural competence.
For
That's
sure.
well, that's what you're sorry not to cut you off, but
No,
that's
that's
to
okay.
think about, because cultural competence, it really largely entered the medical field first for exactly
Mhm,
the reasons what you're saying. You have they kept having issues with, let's say, Spanish speakers,
mhm,
um, African Americans going into the hospitals, and there was a huge disconnect between the medical staff and the people they were serving, and it was that cultural aspect. And so they actually created cultural competence standards for people
mhm,
within the medical field. And it's funny because education came much later, and that's actually part of what I wrote about during my dissertation. So I really looked into that. But
mhm,
you're speaking to something that is the reason why you have all those standards,
mhm,
because people weren't receiving the type of care, or they weren't following through because they felt that the medical staff didn't understand them, couldn't relate. Now they may have been giving them, now now we have to say this too, that let's say that white physician and that black physician may give you the exact same
mhm.
diagnosis, maybe give you the exact same medical treatment, but you may feel more comfortable,
For sure.
you know, with one versus the other.
Mhm,
Maybe, and that comfort level may not simply be what you bring to it, but how they respond to you, that
mhm,
interaction. So it's not always about what they tell you, but how they say it. And
mhm.
so all of that is part of the cultural competence piece. And it's not a small aspect of care.
For sure. For sure. One of the things we talked about, as all of us are getting older, um, people don't think about this, but I think this is really huge, as we're getting, in our 40s and our 50s and 60s, as we, time goes by, going to the doctors is so important, to not let your healthcare just, oh, I'll go. Well, nothing's bothering me. I don't have to
Mhm.
go to the doctors. I'm feeling fine. There are a lot of silent killers out there, um, especially for people of color. You don't know what might be going on behind the scenes. So, just like we talked about, if you need to and mentally you feel like you need to go see a therapist, go see a general practitioner, go see
Mhm.
your GYN, go to the dentist, schedule those things, even if nothing's wrong. Just to say that every year, if you pick a time of the year that's not so crazy for you, take that time to go to the doctors to get all that out the way, and then make sure, because you never know what could be lurking and you're not doing anything about it. But that self-care, when you get that, clean bill of health, could be a measure of self-care for you. So that's, a couple of things, I want people to take away as
Mhm.
they're listening to tonight's broadcast, and hopefully sharing with their family and friends, because it's on Facebook Live and YouTube as usual. So we want to make sure that people get this information. So if
Can I add?
anyone,
I'm sorry. Can I add one piece to that? We just want to go back to the other piece when we talk about like the mental health,
mm-hmm,
and and I just want to remind people, especially if you are in a college or university, or if you're in a K through 12 system, whether you're a minor or if you are a parent of someone in K through 12, they have those wraparound services. And
mm-hmm,
so it's it's there for exactly the same reason, because it's hard for anyone to learn if a lot of these other things are going on in their life. And people think that you can just go and kiss and just go into the school. They have some crazy thing that happened at home or on the way to school. And then you expect them to sit in the classroom and be ready to learn. They aren't. And let me
mm-hmm,
and so I want to say this piece is that we had Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, my executive director, she sent the text around and she asked us to go to a middle school, and because she wanted support, she wanted them to have support. And the reason she sent that text message was because an 11-year-old child killed himself.
mm,
Okay. Now, I don't know the details. I don't know anything beyond that. But, and it was the second one at that school.
mm,
You have young people committing suicide.
mm-hmm.
We've
And a
seen
very
this,
alarming rate.
right? I know I have a stat in the book. It is in the women's book, and maybe in the men's book too, about a stat dealing with suicide rates within the Black community.
Mm,
My point is that especially when you're young, people think that, or you think you can afford. But when you're in school, it's already paid for. If you're in a public school, or probably even if you're in a private school, they have schools, social workers, they have school psychologists. You have the same thing at these colleges and universities.
mm-hmm,
So use those services.
mm-hmm,
That's why they are there. They want students to persevere, and part of that perseverance to get through whatever program is your mental health.
mm-hmm,
So I just want to just remind people that, and it's free. I mean, if you're in college, you're already paying for it. And
mm-hmm,
same thing. And if you're a minor and you're in a public school system, those tax dollars are already paying for it. And so a
mm-hmm,
parent use those services, and schools can tell parents or guardians other resources in the community that can help them. And that's why when kids weren't in school, some families were very disadvantaged even more, because a
mm-hmm.
lot of those services that they were used to receiving, they couldn't anymore, simply
Right.
because it went through the school in the physical spot. And one of
Mm-hmm,
those services was simply those meals that the students receive.
mm-hmm,
And you being a parent of a school age children, this was two of them at the time,
mm-hmm,
Baltimore City, all these other schools, one of the first things they did was create ways in which people can come and get those meals. And you have whole
mm-hmm.
families standing in line to get
Yes.
those meals, because you have some kids who, without the free and reduced lunches and
Weren't
breakfast,
eating.
they don't eat.
Yep.
And so all of that, when we think our basic stuff, that's part of all of our self-care needs. If you aren't
Mm-hmm,
eating, if you aren't in a safe place, then you're not learning. Maybe you feel that everyone is against you. So I just want to say that, because some things we think there's a price tag on, but when you have little people, or like I
mm-hmm,
said, if you're in school, you have those services. And it's the same thing depending on where you work. Some places of employment, they may also have some of those services,
mm-hmm,
and same thing with health care benefits. So I'm saying,
mm-hmm.
look, like you said, look into all those things, and some of it can be definitely free or at a reduced rate, but you have
For
to
sure.
reach out.
For sure. And I will say this, Me being in a medical biller, I'm always looking at the time with my job. I always had to verify people's health insurances for different services at the job I had, which I've been doing this over 10 years. So every year I always made sure to see if any of my coverages had ever changed from year to year. And people don't know this, but mental health, that is, for the most part, at least the major insurance companies, that's covered. And certain insurances will cover up to a certain amount per year with no copay. And then after you hit, let's say it's like 6 or 7 for the year, after that, it's at a reduced amount. So I always tell people, especially my seniors, if you need help navigating what's covered under your health insurance, just let me know. I can kind of walk you through it. But everybody should know, if you get health insurance, if you're paying, out of pocket, if you're getting it covered through your job or your spouse's job, know what is covered under your benefits and how much is your portion. You'd be very surprised what's covered. People don't know this. I didn't know this, but I love chiropractic care. That was one of the best things I found in the mid to late part of my 30s. And that has alleviated, I'm not gonna say alleviated, it has slowed down the progression of me potentially needing back surgery as I get older. People, it was a lot of skits back in the 90s. Oh, chiropractor, that's not a real doctor. Baby, they went to school, got a degree, got a doctor in front of their name. They are a doctor. Put all that respect on their name in the time they were in school. But that service, without needing medicine, without needing surgery, and being in excruciating pain, is one of the best services that could be covered under your benefits. So if you have neck pain, back pain, joint pain, and sometimes, for me, like us, you spoke about it, N.D, sitting in front of that computer screen for hours at a time, you develop migraines and you get all this tension. There is nothing like the perfect neck adjustment to relieve that pressure off. All is the best. So if there's anyone listening that's been to a chiropractor, you totally know what I'm talking about right now. It's one of the best things. So definitely when we get off of here, going about your business over the weekend and definitely look into your health benefits. You'd be very surprised what's covered, or what's covered at a very little cost. So just trust me when I say look into your benefits. Again, we have this book, and it's like a whole. She's a whole teacher, so it's like textbook size.
A whole teacher. Wait a minute,
a whole teacher. So I
that.
have the woman's side. She has the men. So this textbook here, this self-guide journal is great for men and for women. So Mother's Day is around the corner. Father's Day is right behind. This is the perfect time to start putting together those gift baskets for your loved ones, because this is going to get them through the whole year. And it might help them start thinking about, everyone says, oh, I want to do things differently, it's a new year. This is a good way to write down the things that you don't like, you do like, and things that you want to change. This is a great book. And it's so awesome because with my little sticker in here, because I didn't take my sticker out of my gift. If I could get to the sticker part, where did it go? I'm having such a moment here. Please hold. Please hold, guest, as my stickering book. Because Legacy BookBar is a book.
And look, wait a minute, open it up again. And this is what's great about it. See, and that's what you're talking about, your goals. So you're right next to career goals, and that fits.
Yes,
that fits.
That's so perfect. N.D, she calls me and she's like, "Hey, do you want to go in the book?" And I'm like, what book? What you talking about, Cletus? Where you going here? and she, explains what she wants. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, whatever you need. And she's like, send it. I was like, no, look, I am not an author, so whatever it is, you grammatical errors you need to fix, please do so. But here you go. Here's my bio. Do with it as you will. Whatever she calls for, whatever. Sure, go for it. Take it. Here's a picture. Here's the bio. Go for it. She says, okay, so you're in the book. I'm like, what book? What are you talking about? She's like, the journal. Oh, you were serious. Okay.
Yes, serious.
Oh, great. Okay, sure. I love it. So I always tease her, and she knows I'm going to tease her, and I could not get away with this. If anyone was paying attention as they were listening this evening, you heard her mention her master's, and you heard her mention her dissertation. You see how calmly, so humbly she says this information. She's a whole doctor, y'all. A whole doctor. DR, front of her name. And she's just, and that's what my whole dissertation was about. If you wrote a dissertation, that means you have some initials behind your name.
Yeah.
So Dr. Jones is so just comment sections are going off because they knew our favorites were going to be here. So we have Mr. Stanley Jenkins here, who's so great. He said, this is super awesome. And thanks, of course, because that's my love. Of course. Mom is here as usual. Hey,
Miss
Mom.
Jen.
How are you? Another fan favorite, Amanda Chambers, is here. Amanda Chambers also just did N.D's podcast. I cannot wait to see that airing of their episode. Mm-hmm. Cool. Amanda has also written a self-care journal. And I want to say Legacy will be getting that journal the same time we'll be getting N.D's latest coloring book. So that would be awesome. And then let's see. We have a YouTube comment that says a whole doctor. Yes. A whole doctor. Like she's going to get ice cream. Yeah, I went and, got my master's and wrote a dissertation and ate some ice cream. So casual. I don't understand. Why she does me like this. I don't get it. But I told her every time I see her, this is totally what we're going to do here. Yes, in all caps, Dr. for sure.
Your mother slays me.
Yes. And then get her Menina. Make her talk about, yes.
Don't listen to my husband. Do not listen to him.
Wait, she has 2 doctorate degrees? Wait a minute.
No.
What? You have 2?
No.
That totally.
I almost no.
Almost has 2.
Almost. Then I had kids. They already know the story, so they're not offended.
What? Oh my God! See, this is why I say I love people, and I love N.D and I love Amanda because they are so how humble they are. They're like, yeah, I own a publishing company, and yeah, I have a doctorate. Like, people.
Amanda's gonna get her doctorate.
Yeah, she just ought to.
No, she is.
And I can have 2 doctorates in the family. Like, what's wrong with you people? Oh my goodness. Oh. Yes, and Mom says I'm coloring in my Dr. Jones. Yes. For sure. So, if anyone wants to get in the coloring group here, we have 2 books, 1 and 2 of the coloring book. If you want to be part of the cool crew to get your coloring on, we have these 2. And then let's see, we have another YouTube comment. Oh, YouTube is being great today. Death and Destiny is my favorite series. I wonder what series is Dr. Jones' favorite. That's a good question, Dr. Jones. What's your favorite? Tell us. We
That
want to
is
know.
super hard. Um,
Do, do, do.
crap. I, mm, okay. Okay, I'm gonna.
You can't name your favorite. Is
I
it?
can't even because it's like I love different ones for different reasons. I love the Death and Destiny because of the romance and the beautiful arc with them in their relationship
Mm-hmm.
and their power, and I felt that last book was so freaking epic. I love that so much. But then the Feline Nation duology had such unprecedented heart in it,
Oh my God, that was my
um,
favorite. Oh my God.
that I, I and the when you talk about like resilience, that book is like resilience personified, and the care, and also how it can go off the rails. You know what I mean? It takes a while. You're not just like, oh, I'm just like resilient and it's easy. It is nothing easy about it. And I love that duology because of that, and my focus on those two different types of Black women
Mm-hmm.
and what they went through and their struggle and the people around them, and that they came out on the other end not unscathed by it, but true like survivors. And so I love that duology because of that. So that's why I struggle with it. So
I
that's
give
my
you
answer for whatever
that.
that
I give you that. Man, let me.
is. Don't start
So, for those that don't know, I totally, when I decided I was going to open up a bookstore, and I wanted to. I knew when I wanted to open the bookstore, I knew for a fact that I was featuring only Black authors. And then after working with Amanda Chambers and Divine Legacy, I was like, it's only going to be Black self-published authors. I'll sprinkle in some traditionally published authors there, but I really wanted to focus on them because of listening to her and working with her, hearing the stigma behind authors that were self-published. So I was like, we're going to be outside the box, and this is what we're going to do. So I'm Googling, Black publishing companies in my area, like trying to find, hoping I can find something at least in the DMV area, right? At work, at a whole other job, looking for publishers, right? Come across, oh God, what book was it? Don't kill me because I think I totally forgot. It's the one with
Kaumba?
the blue and the black
Oh,
cover.
oh,
Blood.
oh, Crimson Hunter.
Yeah, no, wasn't that
No,
one. I
oh,
saw
Queen's
that one
Pride.
last.
A Queen's Pride.
No, because I had that when I got Legacy. All right, I'm not
So
going.
was it?
I'm. It's the lady. She got all white on the cover.
She has all white on.
It's like a blue and black background. It said, I want to say like lies, lust, something. Which
Oh,
one is it?
oh, oh. Lies, Lust, Love.
Thank
I
you.
don't. Oh, okay.
So that was the first. So when I Googled it, that's what Google showed me first. So
Okay,
I
that's
was
good.
like, well, what's this cover? What is this? So, I start clicking on hyperlinks. Her whole website comes up. I was like, oh, these covers are nice. So totally started having a fangirl moment. Keep in mind, I'm supposed to be looking for publishers for the bookstore. Totally forgot the home assignment, right? I'm sitting here and I'm like, and it tells me she's from Baltimore. I'm like, no way. So I'm like sending her emails in the chat box. I'm like, we have to talk. I have to find out. She's got to be here. And I'm like, so I'm from Baltimore. Just open up a bookstore, right? And she's like, oh, this is great. We get to talking, and then I come across Crimson Hunter, and I was like, oh my God, oh my gosh, this cover is fire. This cover is fire. Finally works some magic. Come to find out we're like freaking neighbors. And I was like, how is this even possible? But I'm not going to look this gift in the mouth, right? I'm going to just go ahead and take this, right? It's going to be great. And then I got Crimson Hunter. And then that story was really, really good. Then we got Queen's Bride, and I was like, this is how I knew she was going to be my best friend, right? She doesn't know she's my best friend, but she's totally my best friend, right? I read Queen's Pride and got through the first 4 chapters. And was like, oh my God, why did you do this? And she answered back, right? Got to like chapter 6. I called her through Facebook and was like, seriously, you did this? And she was like, just keep reading. I was like, but it was so epically good. And this is not me talking as the owner of Legacy BookBar. This is me talking as a fan. How wonderful Queen's Pride was, right? Heartbreaking moments, but it was so. You ever have a character that is so epically badass that you wish you could meet them in real life, but it's a fictional character, so you really know you could. That was me. Then she came. Then how it ended, you knew you were going to get a sequel. You didn't know what type of sequel you were going to get, but you knew you were going to get something. Then we get a prequel. So we get to find out why everybody is the way that they are, specifically one particular character. When I tell you I completely snot cried, read this book in one day. One day, mind you. Now, everyone knows I'm a fast reader, so that's not really shocking. But for those that don't know, yes, people can read a book in one day. Well over 300 pages, totally read it in a day. That book was so like, I wish, like, I really want to just like send this book to like every major network that does sci-fi and be like, you have to bring the story to the TV, because the story and the history between those 2 books and that duology, whew, don't take my word for it. You can buy it because it's at Legacy BookBar. I'm just telling you, it's a book you need to get. So yes. So back to the comment section. Just saying, don't take my word for it, but it's great. Just saying. So Mr. Jenkins says, so if anyone's paying attention, I believe Mr. Jenkins is totally Dr. Jones's husband.
Yes. I was like, that's like putting all my business out in the street.
Wait. Side note, right? So we're gonna veer off a little bit here. Just bear with me, right? Just bear with me. He posted a very sweet happy birthday post, right? I was like, it's my blooming birthday. I didn't get this alert. Let me start working on my posting for her birthday. In the post, it says, with balloons, mind you, happy 50th birthday. Now I can say it because he already put her business out, so it's not like it's not already out in the internet.
In the street, okay. Both of you.
It's in the street. See, he did it first. I wasn't going to put your age out there, but then he did it first, so I figured it was fair game at this point. 50 where? That's what I want to know.
Both of y'all got it coming.
It's not my fault that you're gorgeous at 50. It's not my fault.
Thank you.
It's not my fault. So, but Mr. Jenkins says she's really smart. Yes, we know. She majored in Black politics at Howard, nearly finished, then went to another HBCU, Morgan, and majored in community college leadership. Boom. That's me dropping the mic for him because he typed it. Boom. That's that. We have a question to Dr. Jones. What's your favorite anime? Hey, I'm just reading the questions in the chat.
It's like 2 that I watch over and over again. That's on Netflix. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say Castlevania. I'm not going to mention the other one because I'm not getting an argument with myself. Like I did with that last question. So I'm just going to say Castlevania. That's it. That's what we're going to go with.
That's what she says. Okay, first off, why didn't anyone tell me how good Vikings Valhalla was until I just finished the series? Like, oh my God.
And I haven't watched it yet. One of my colleagues just mentioned it at work. And she doesn't watch stuff like that. She said the only reason she watches because she saw a couple of guys that she thought were attractive. So now she's watching it. I'm talking about you, Laura. So if you ever watch this, I'm just telling you.
That is really good. You and I have to have a total side conversation about that because that was totally great. It's great. Another comment was, can you briefly speak about some of the social justice themes in your works? Absolutely, we can.
Don't let him take over.
Sure, we are,
This
because he's
show.
great. I love him. Absolutely, for sure.
Wait a minute. What was the
Let's talk.
question?
Okay, so
What was
he
that?
said, let's talk about some of the social justice themes in your books. So let's talk about Crimson Hunter.
Oh,
Talk about that one.
God.
Which, of course, I don't have that book because
I know. I didn't. I don't have it.
we're
I don't have
talking.
it.
We weren't talking fantasy and
No.
sci-fi today. But yes, since we brought it
Well,
up.
let's see. So in Crimson Hunter, um, you have I look at some like the extreme relationships between men and women. So it's based on it's a reimagining of Little Red Riding Hood. So if you take a look at a lot of those different stories, there are definitely sexual aspects to it
Mm-hmm.
in a most disturbing way, by the way. And so, with the huntsman or the actual wolf, and I don't know why we do weird things like that with children and then give it to them as fairy tales. But anyway, so I use some of those ideas of what happens if you have a society like we do, in which you have men who dominate. So in this instance, it was the wolves, and then they subjugate the women, and then what happened was there was a war and the women won. So then the women, they created a society in which they subjugated the men, but not in the same way, meaning they were so afraid of the reversal happening again that they denied the men rights. Well, you can't have a society like that. So I talked a little bit, well, a lot about that, um, in the book. So that was Crimson Hunter, because it's also a situation is, what type of relationship do you have with your oppressor? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you marry. Times we marry them, right? And it's the same thing with race relations too.
Mm-hmm.
You have you have people who are members of these groups, but you all live in the same society. So you have to figure something out,
Mm.
and we're all held back from those systems of oppression. So I explored that in Crimson Hunter. In the Feline Nation, with A Queen's Pride and Moth's Claws, I really looked at the history of like manifest destiny, of colonialism, and you can look at it as far as what happened with the native population of this country, but also other places as well. But I did that through the lens of shifters being pushed off their lands,
Mm-hmm.
and the generational trauma as it relates to that. And how do you overcome that? And then even now, look at the Ukraine. Look at the Ukraine. You think that in 2022 that we don't have people still going into countries and
Mm-hmm.
trying to take over. And so in Moth's Clause, we look at, it should have been stable. They already pushed them off their land. That was done. They had a treaty, and it should have been over with. But no, because people are greedy. People
Mm-hmm.
want what they want. And if they think that your life and the lives of your children are not as valued as theirs, then they feel they can just go in and do what they want. And so, yeah, we still see that. So I talk a lot
Mm-hmm.
about that in those books as well. I just put it through the lens of a fantasy story. But what I've been happy to find out when I read reviews, that people get it. They see exactly what it is,
Mm-hmm.
what I pulled from. And I find that they appreciate that. And they
Mm-hmm.
feel that it's important to have those stories told, even in the way that I've chosen to tell them.
Absolutely. And this is why here, with Legacy Book Bar, Crimson Hunter and the duology are really big fan favorites. Those fly off the shelves so fast. And then we get, we're still bringing in reviews. So don't forget, if you've gotten any of N.D Jones books, you definitely need to leave a review either with Legacy Book Bar and or Amazon. Those reviews are key.
Yeah.
So don't forget that. We have a lot of questions today. This is great, White. Thank you for the comments. When coming up with characters, how often do you come up with characters that need to die? Oh,
Did your mother ask that question?
no, that was
Did
not
Miss
mom.
Karen ask that
That
question?
was not. That was lit. Tion. I can't pronounce the
Okay.
first part. That was his or her question. When coming up with characters, how often do you come up with characters that need to die? And what are some ways you make their deaths impactful?
Okay. All right. I hmm. Oftentimes I don't go into a story or a scene that wasn't me.
That wasn't her
You
this time.
noticed it this time, but no angry faces. No, your mother can't draw. She can't draw and show me any of her pictures today. But
My mom is queen for drawing her
she's
emojis
drawing
during
her.
book clubs.
Yes, at least
That's
she.
it.
And I appreciate that she's in touch with her emotions. I love that. But to answer a question, I don't think about it as someone who needs to die, as opposed to it makes sense. A character's death makes sense with the story that I'm telling. And for that death to be impactful, even if it's a villain's death, um, which is they don't ever just like die in my stories. They're always killed. I'm just saying, I commit
Always.
mass murder, in
Horribly
a lot
and
of my
so
horrible.
wonderfully
And
done.
you know, but if you do your job well and you make them a good villain, I don't mean like the ha ha, twirling of your
Right,
mustache
right.
type of villain, but you're like, mm-hmm. Or like say for example, the person who was like one of the villains in Crimson Hunter, I didn't kill her, but her punishment fit what she
Mm,
did, and it fit her personality. Meaning, I took something from her that she valued so much more than her life, and so it hurt her, and so that was a fitting um comeuppance. It was very painful for her, and so I think a person read it like, mm-hmm. And some other people that some other characters that I create, I'm thinking, no, nothing is better than death. And there's normally those are people who've really committed those types of similar crimes. Um, I just finished this one book, and it wasn't death; it was like lifetime imprisonment. But that was a person who that whole confinement was a punishment for them.
mm.
So I think if you align whatever the punishment is with what you created for that person, and it's meaningful for the story, it's impactful to the characters, that makes the death of value. Not that someone needed to die, but it works with the story and it
Mm.
moved it along. And I think it should foster certain types of emotions in the reader when it happens.
I was gleeful. It was so great. I loved it. Even though I was totally, but I do agree that there were characters, and I called you and was like, they didn't have to die. Why do you, even though, especially, as you when you're reading the stories, you knew something was going to happen and you get emotionally prepared.
Mhm.
I don't think there was any, at least in the books I've read, there weren't any deaths that were no, Queen's Pride took me. Never mind, I'm gonna take that back. I was gonna say there was no deaths that surprised me, but I'm gonna take that back. All of the deaths after that was needed. I was totally okay. They had to go.
They had to
Told you,
go.
I think I was in a mob in another lifetime because I'm never upset when a villain dies in a story. It's great. It's time to go. Sorry, but no. Even the villain's death though. Um, Still for me as the reader evoked pain at that time because up until that point everything that they had done to make them the villain, and then they finally get their moment and they die, and it's like, yes, do you know how much destruction you have caused me? And it's just her story writing, the way she just pins it is just, and again, this is not me as the bookstore owner. This is, if you love a well written story, if you like to think, if you like to feel, definitely cop one of her books. It will have you go through all of the emojis like the rest of us. It's great. Um, Stanley said one last thing. um, Dr. Jones' books have been shortlisted for major literary awards. I know because her book, all of her books says USA best-selling author. It's great. It's like right there. Can you see it? Yes, she is. Yes, Dr. Jones is. I'm just saying. It's great. She doesn't have to talk about it. That's why she has me to do it for her because we left her here. Um, Oh, and then the last comment was understood. Many thanks. So I believe that was in response to his or her question above. Tonight was great. My love was here. We talked about her favorite books and we talked about her, The Color of My Resilience. It's great. Her textbook because she's a whole teacher out here in these streets. She's a whole doctorate out here in these streets with textbooks and everything, and they're so cost affordable. So please go to Amazon today, purchase her book. It's gonna be great. Don't forget when you purchase, please leave a review. It's gonna be great. Thank you, my love, for joining us. I am not today going to hit you with my signature question because I feel like I've asked you this question like 3 million times. So I'm going to save my question and ask you at a later date because you keep writing stories and you keep coming back. So
I do have. Can I read something?
of course.
Let me
What
see.
you got?
May I?
I'm like a little kid. Like, what you
Okay. I can only read one. So I'm gonna read it from The Color of My Resilience. So I know we talked a lot about the women's book, and we do have a man's companion. As a matter of fact, I did this one first,
got?
and as Manina noted, that both journals have stories, essays of resilience
Mm-hmm.
in there. So you find ones all written by sisters in the women's book, and then by men in this book. And then my husband wrote an article. My son Asufa, he wrote an article. But my son Asufa's long time friend since I believe like middle school.
Wow.
And I'm gonna have to let him know that when you have this up. But his name is Bamani, and he's just an amazing young man. And my son told me that he's like, Bamani, he writes poetry. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, I wasn't thinking about poetry for the book, but great, ask him if he wants to contribute. And
Mm-hmm.
he pinned something, and he totally forgot about it. I sent him the book in the mail, and he called me. And as a parent, you kind of talk to your friend, your children's friends, but not talk to them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in Staples parking lot, Walgreens parking lot, 'cause that's where I was going, and probably talked to this young man for 40 minutes.
Aww.
And one of the first things he said to me when he got it, he said, one that he forgot, but he was like, this book needs to be in schools. He
For
said, I
sure.
needed this book when I was a kid. And he just explained so much about the value of the book when he looked at it. And it touched me so much because I hadn't received any other feedback from the book other than my family and friends. But to have someone, a young person, a young Black man, take a look at this and see the value in it. But so I wanted to read his poem.
Okay.
So again, his name is Bomani Weatherby Kelly, and he wrote a poem entitled I Am Power. And he says, I am in search of power. I wonder the limits of my reach as I extend to the end. I hear people say one day there won't be hate anymore, but all I see is war. I want change, but I am in need of power. I pretend I am already strong, but I feel wrong because when I touch the handle of my door, I worry that I might not walk back through again. And so I cry as I am continuing the struggle for power. I understand that I can't control everything because sometimes when I say I'm fine, I'm not. I dream inside my hope filled cot as I try to hold on to the hope I've got. I hope and pray that one day I'll get to say that I am power.
Mm,
So, like I said, I wrote the book first for Black men because everything I kept seeing on the news was about the murder of George Floyd.
mm,
I have a son, I have a husband, I have three older brothers. And I wrote about that in my intro, but it's about my why. And Bamani's poem really encapsulates my why, being a Black woman married to a Black man with Black sons. And so I thank you for having me on today and sharing these journals because they are so important. I wish they weren't. I wish things like this weren't needed, but they are. And so again, I thank you for the opportunity to share both of the journals with the viewers.
absolutely, my love. Absolutely. You that poem and the reason why you wrote the journal, that kind of answered the question of your what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, there you go. Ah,
Kind of
okay.
just answered that one. So, no, but no, I agree with you. Um, I'm going to do my best to get as many people to this journal that I can. Definitely, especially our high schoolers. I think middle school for sure, but high school, it's such a pivotal moment that they're not a kid, but they're not an adult either. But the world is going to look at them like they're an adult. Um, and this could have totally helped me at 18, 19. So I totally understand his saying that this should be in school and this should have been in school. So we are going to actively do our best to make sure that both of these get into hands of some high schoolers to help guide them as they're journeying into adulthood. So that's going to be our mission going forward. Tonight was amazing. I love you from infinity to beyond here at Legacy Book Bar. Um, everyone that's watching, thank you so much for the comments. Please, please, please make sure that you're following the pages. You have shared with your family and friends. Tonight's episode, like every episode of Legacy Book Bar Sip and Chat, is live on Facebook and on YouTube simultaneously. So you have many, many opportunities to watch and share tonight's episode as well as all of the previous episodes of the Sip and Chat. We'll have her back, so never fear. She'll have another book coming out this year sometime, or just when we just want to say hey and just catch up. We'll have her back.
Thank
Don't
you.
leave. We just got a couple of updates with Legacy Book Bar. Where are we? We're in March. So we have one more episode. I think we've been here for about 8 weeks. So we've gone almost 8 weeks strong with the episodes of the Sip and Chat. Then we'll take a little bit of break, and then I'll come back with 8 new authors to introduce you to. I think next week we are going to end with author Shay August, who also writes urban fantasy. I met her through N.D Jones, so we will get a chance to talk to her next week. And then I want to say next week is our March book of the month. So we are going to have author Renee Cherie here with us as we talk about her story of Conniption Fit. It's 3 short stories. They all some kind of way intertwine. And this book actually talks about these stories actually talk about the lives of women as they deal with domestic violence, mental health, substance abuse, and the conniption fit of their lives. So we can't wait to delve into this book and then have Renee on. If you watched last week's episode, then you got to hear a little bit about her why and a little bit about her book. So you still have time to purchase at legacybookbar.com and get your. I totally didn't mean to do that, but not that copy because that's my copy. So you'll get a new copy that I did not drop on the floor, and we can get that out to you in time for the next book of the month club. we got a huge event coming up in April. I'm super excited. Partnering with Amanda Chambers, CEO of Divine Legacy Publishing. We doing a little plotting and we doing a little planning. So if you are an aspiring author or even an established author, and you are somewhat stuck on the direction you want your latest book to go, Plotting and Planning's webinar hosted by Legacy BookBar and done with Amanda Chambers, who is a self-publishing guru, as she owns her own publishing company, and herself has written, I want to say, 10 books. So that webinar also comes with the textbook, because you know my girls, that Black Girl Magic, they be coming out with textbooks because they whole Amanda Chambers is a whole professor out here in these streets, and she come with a whole textbook. So for a lovely fee of $35, you can sign up for our Plotting and Planning webinar and get this textbook for your webinar series. So you're going to want to make sure you sign up and get that textbook and get all your questions asked so we can get that book off of print, not off print, out of your head onto paper in the Amazon Legacy Book Bar so the fans can read your book. So you're going to want to make sure that you do that. And that's it. So, you know, we had a great night here. Fan favorite was back. She'll be back again. Got a couple of updates out there. So make sure that you come back here next Friday as we end our session of Sip and Chats, as we end with the lovely Shay August. You guys, it's still COVID outside. So if you go outside, please mask up. Enjoy this weather. It's been great. Might be a little rainy tomorrow if you're in the DMV. So take an umbrella. It's okay. You don't want to get your hair messed up. So make sure you're out here staying safe. You guys have a fabulous night. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will see you next week at another episode of the Sip and Chat. Good night.